This godforsaken habit, what has it made of me? This habit of having thought myself a musician. Now that I look upon this dreadful, cruel black comedy, or rather pitch-black commode, now that I see it, what in God's name is it? What has it always been, ever been, since its very beginning? I will forget it, of course. We jettison even the most long-lived of habits, and, after a time, forget we ever had them. They appear to us ludicrous, incomprehensible. We cast through the catacombs of our memory, trying to locate that self who had once cared a fig for such things, such avocations, vocations, and, let us not forget, persons, lovers, wives, who are also things of habit, and, when gone, eventually become the mysterious accompanists we'd long ago engaged to accompany us, in duets which now sound, at times, cacophonous, the sorts of things from which one flees. But more often, far more often, things for which we have only the most profound apathy, which no longer touch us in the least. If I still grieve, after all these years, for my first wife, could it possibly be about or for her that I grieve? Of course not. That would be an utterly preposterous assertion. She is no more, and the self who told himself he loved her is long gone as well. Of what, then, could such a thing possibly be constituted? Shock that lives in the body. It is quite unlikely that it is anything more than or different from that, and that alone. But what of the habit of being one's self? That's a tougher one, an enigma on the order of Schopenhauer's world knot. I have discarded and buried the tens of thousands of selves who've combed the earth bearing my name and social security number, without batting an eye. But what of this one? The one to which I am so seemingly firmly attached, the one right now. What of him? Can I attain to that state in which I see only the pockmarked actor with the paunch and balding hair, and never again Hamlet? Why, certainly I can, and do, and have. Why then, not with myself, this one, the one within which I am presently incarcerated, at this very moment? Can I not look upon this steaming bag of viscera, shit and foolishness, and reach a similar conclusion? As if I were some word endlessly repeated, which has been reduced to nothing but a perfectly idiotic and profoundly annoying noise. Gibberish? My mind says of me very much the same. I am nothing more than an idiotic and profoundly annoying sound, sight, and stench, among other things, all of them annoying, nay, infuriating, and that's on a good day. And yet this hunger, this moronic will to live, how do I rid myself of it? Philosophy can't manage it. The Stoics were such fools, such endlessly prattling blockheads and poseurs. The passions are all, and the passion which is concerned with continuing even the most horrid of existences is the profoundest of all of them. Yes, there are exceptions, in extraordinary circumstances, or perhaps at times even in banal ones. One hopes for the latter, for there is no one more banal than I. I want to feel towards myself what I so sadly experience now in and with music. It has become chatter, mindless, narcissistic chatter, narcissistic masturbation to no purpose, an admittedly redundant turn of phrase, although there can be pleasure in the latter. And yet, alas, I no longer take any pleasure in music, nor do I in my grubby, putrid, and all too familiar self. Therein I perceive only a leering, contemptible inanity, and yet, were I to attempt to wrestle against the instinctual revolt of the body envelope in which I find myself, I would lose. I know that. I've tried it several times. All this very like what has become of music, which has become, for me, little more than a den of narcissistic monsters, coughing up and out the purest nonsense, Roman fountains full of trombone spittle and bow hairs, rooms full of perversely shaped diaphragms, belching rank, fetid air out of rancid gullets, through instruments and into auditoriums, very much as former lovers have become beings about whom I never give a thought. They have all of them devolved into a worthless collection of vibrating larynxes, distorted nipples, blemished faces, and idiotic verbiage, their every former beauty mark now the obvious, actual deformity, which I had previously not seen or wished away, renamed, or at least reframed, in order that it not disgust me as it does now. And so too have I become to myself a thing, an automaton, a mechanicus, a machine, any sane person simply drags to the junkyard and never thinks of again. I have, at times, remarked to myself that I have fallen out of love with this self, and yet there has never been anything out of which to fall, certainly not love. There has only ever been loathing and disgust. And yet I hang on, like a rat on board the sinking Titanic. I want nothing more than to sleep, the sleep of death, that's true enough. And yet it's always the sleep of not quite death, the hedging of one's bet sleep of death. For tomorrow I may. I may what, pray tell? Drink of the nectar pouring out of some woman's pussy whom I have attempted to convince myself I love? That seems less than likely. Cough up another page of crap no one will ever read? Some trivial, pleasant enough sounding tune to which no one will ever listen? To slog on a bit more through the perfumed, poisonous, cork-lined rooms within the mind of Marcel Proust, that sick fuck? These are the reasons my idiot body supplies to my obedient mind, which is almost but never quite stupid enough to believe them. I go on because I must. Because the painless suicide clinics on every other corner, which one would find in any even remotely civilized society, do not exist. I possess no lust, no passion, and no enthusiasm for anything anymore. I see right through to its transparently hypocritical, here we go again heart, though they so rarely have hearts, at a first glance or hearing. There's nothing new under the sun, which is like most other suns, all of whom, I assume, must be as bored shitless as I. The sleeping earth must necessarily pray for the kindness of a collision with a planet greater than itself. I cannot even flatter myself that it is sorrow I feel. It is far too inconsequential, far too generic and stupid. And if it is a sort of sorrow, it is precisely the same sorrow that every other fool feels when he wakes up in the foul pool of each new morning to find that he is again drowning and that there's nothing for it. I've hardly got a patent on it. In the beams of your home there are countless tribes of beings, some of them insects, others slimy invertebrates of this sort or that, all of them engaged in ritual slaughter, and all of them shrieking in desperation, in agony. Put your ear to the wall, you hear it, yes? The very same rituals are taking place this very instant in your guts and in your bloodstream, full, as they both are, of weeping microbes, begging, praying for death, imploring their neighbours to end their shabby, imbecilic lives, for they are too weak or have not the proper means to do it. Just like me, and like you. Of course, it's best to not think upon any of this. You just end up spinning, screaming, and clutching your bloated guts. You want to tell someone, anyone, what it is you've seen, what you've become, what you're experiencing, but they cannot hear you and won't listen, because it is precisely the same for them, the difference being that they've erected ramparts against the enemy. And, my friend, if you are anything like me and see what I see, rest assured, for them you are the enemy. You walk through the park, dropping selves like flies. With each step you take, don't look back. They are slipping beneath the gravel, trying to claw their way upright before they disappear, wailing, praying that you'll offer them your hand and not simply cast them off like dead skin without a thought. And in the course of your short walk, you have murdered 10,000 selves, merely to be the one who the very next moment is to be murdered, suffocated, buried, and forgotten. Ah, but the smell of lilacs, so lovely in it. How even more delicious it would be were you a bee, a butterfly, a hummingbird, or a caterpillar. And yet you are. You silly person, you are all those things. When they shed those selves, more quickly than hummingbirds flap their wings, those dying selves are not the least bit different from you. It's the same toilet in which I, you, we, all end up. Listen, you can hear it flushing, no? Whom am I addressing? Again? Yes, you are violently alive in this moment, as alive as an endless line of veal calves stretched across the dung-filled walls of a factory farm, all hung on meat hooks with the speed of those hummingbirds' wings flapping, each thinking, nay, knowing, I'm the real veal calf, no question of that. I feel as if I am, and hence there's no denying that. Whoops! Next veal calf. Same ideation, same comical, fantastical notions of continuity. The savage intensity, the wild aliveness of the dying moment, which you call yourself, and I myself. For we love stories, don't we? They seem to be what you are, what I am, what we all are. So we continue to pretend, hope, and sometimes even believe that these things are the case. We must tell ourselves these stories. Otherwise, the spinning begins, the vertigo, the sickness, unto death, towards death, and of death. I look about. There must be someone to whom I can communicate these horrors. They look somewhat like me. Perhaps they see it as well, and feel somewhat similarly. Perhaps we can hold hands for a moment, the moment just before we're thrown on a meat hook. But this line of veal calves... Wait, that's not quite right. The veal calf thrown on the meat hook is the one just cast off, sloughed off. Yes, of course, the meat hook is behind us. The abyss is tracking us from just behind, swallowing our cast-off selves, the idiot selves that keep walking through the park, thinking themselves somehow continuous. All the while they are simply mutating, becoming other, unrecognizable, new selves, all of which sounds as if it should be delightful, no? How delightful, not knowing what one's next thought shall be, what pain shall arise, which hunger, regret, longing, speck in one's eye, lump in one's throat, tumour in one's abdomen, sensation of a bursting bladder, or of an explosive, wildly constipated colon. What are to be the future remarks by our idiot neighbour, or when shall be our next unpleasant sighting of that noxious moron? What shall it consist of, this next moment? No matter, it won't be I, in any event, that I is already behind me, half swallowed by the gravel path, screaming, reaching for my hand, and begging for, what? Another moronic nanosecond of stability, begging me, this me, which is already gone as well, swallowed, begging, screaming, reaching, gone. Delightful movie, no? Would you like some popcorn? Popcorn, yes, indeed. One wants to feel it slithering down one's gullet, plopping down into an inferno of hydrochloric acid. It's a scenario very much like our own, like the fate of each self we each shit out hundreds of times a minute. Nay, an infinite number of times. They, like our popcorn, which we imagine might shriek and beg for mercy somewhat less, though there's no assurance of that, are cast into a vat of acid, there to be torn asunder, dissolved in a ravenous, satanic stew, in which they splinter into barbecued bits of lonely grief, crushed hopes, and existential terrors. It's all been futile, this death march. You see it, no? You know you're on it. Of course you must know at least that. It cannot be only I that see it. That is not possible. Let your spirit fly upwards for a moment, towards the vault of, well, surely not heaven, towards the stratosphere. Breathe deeply of the nitrogen and whatever the other godforsaken poisons are that float about up there. But look down. That's the main thing. That's the point. Look down. And do tell us, what is it you see? You see it? Surely you see it? The death marches at every scale of existence? The countless souls being cast off, billions of times a second, into that blood-red ocean of flames? I see it. I see nothing else these days, only that. And not just the infinite holocaust of beings gorging on one another, that's the least of it. I recall how I busied myself for so long thinking that was the worst of it. No, the other holocausts, those of nature herself and of time, chasing us all through scorched and desolate deserts, all the while stabbing us gleefully in the ass. We are all Muammar Gaddafi in his final moments, are we not? That thing called Muammar Gaddafi, which was, and had been, an infinite number of beings, each disappearing the moment it was observed by the others, and by itself. Pretty picture, innit? You can weep about these things. I do. I am, as a matter of fact, weeping right now. It's a bottom-end form of being alive, and, hey, it's a living. I know a few others as well, all of them hopelessly undependable and unsatisfying. Some sick jokes not worth repeating, a few tunes, and not a whole lot else. The world is an ill-composed tune, do you hear it? Those she-devils scratching away at their mutilated cellos with those two strings made of cat's guts, some of whose bloodied, eviscerated corpses lie at their feet. Their audience composed quite entirely of other garroted cats, for they're all about, a few of them still sufficiently alive to wildly howl, as cats do, particularly those who have been recently so viciously eviscerated. They are a less than ideal audience, and yet, still, one weeps. Ah, there is no explaining these things. Still, one weeps. I weep, you weep. I wrote that little ditty, by the way. That trivial little cello tune. Yeah, it's quite awful, I know, and I was quite certain I had trashed it. I haven't the slightest notion how anyone could possibly have chanced upon it, much less arranged it for 6 mutilated cellos, nor where they might have found she-devils willing to work for such low wages. Is there not a union of some kind? A she-devil union? Of course there is. I married into one. I've been paying its dues ever since, but that's another story. Don't listen too closely, for reasons explained above. You'll hear only catguts, and see only the carcasses of dead trees, cats, and the grimaces of she-devils. No matter, it will all reliably implode, momentarily. And yes, that is what is really going on. And this is all very far from a deep insight, my friend. Is this reality the one you wish to experience? What all of this, in fact, actually is? This random assemblage of endless bits of debris, each of which has not the slightest real relationship with the scrap of litter against which it has been momentarily thrown. The idiotic, static and black noise which is the world. Do you not prefer your little stories, the ones you tell yourself you see and hear, the ones you tell yourself you are, the ones about your life and its meaning? Of course you do. Pass the popcorn if you've not yet finished it, and would be so kind. And do your best not to notice how each word that comes out of my mouth, or of yours, or of any mouth, none of which any of us can remotely predict, drops down to and disappears within the famished ground beneath it, which we believe serves to hold us up, and upon which we tell ourselves we walk, but which, rather, no, Do not look down or behind. Look only ahead. Replay that soothing, innocuous story in your mind's ear. And do have a bit of popcorn. Before it, and I, and you, and we, the we of this particular nanosecond, who are already gone before we disappear, die, are swallowed, incinerated, buried, and forgotten, all of us lightning flashes in a pan who shan't be ever heard from again, known or experienced, all those eyes of but a moment ago, before we, well, you know,